Boys, what's going on? Welcome back to the channel. I got a killer video on deck for us today. I really want to break down how to build a 3D shoulder and to really build that wide aesthetic physique. Because guys, the biggest thing I had to realize in my journey was that the shoulders literally define your physique. And if not done the right way, you're just not going to achieve, a physique that's more aesthetic, but to really get that V taper and everything kind of comes together because the shoulders frame our body. And if we're not understanding that our shoulder is comprised of 3 parts, especially the rear, the side, and the front, and then just having the overall compound lift of making sure, again, we're hitting the entire part, it's not going to be a defined look. And essentially, you're just not going to be able to achieve one of the narrow waist, the defined build, and a wider chest. Everything that kind of puts it together into really, build it the best way possible. So I really want to break down exactly what you guys need to know and how to do it successfully. I broke this video down to 3 core essentials, understanding the basic framework on how to build our shoulders the right way, really get that 3-dimensional pop to make sure we get the V taper and everything kind of looks very aesthetic. I want to really break down on prioritizing our 3 delts, especially, the side and the rear delt, because we essentially, a lot of us focus on our front delts because it's most of our compound lifts, like our bench press, our pressing movements, incline, bench press, all this different stuff. But if we neglect the other 2 parts, the 2/3 of the shoulder, we're going to get more of a front heavy look and it's just not going to honestly come together the right way. And then I want to give you guys basically a sample training plan that kind of consolidates everything we need so you guys have a go-to model or a reference to make sure we're hitting our shoulders the right way, we're building our physique the right way, we're making sure we're maximizing our potential in the shortest amount of time possible. Because once we get this framework down, once you guys see it from this lens, it's really going to just change the way your body's built, the results you get in such a quicker speed, and honestly get the aesthetic frame that you honestly deserve. Because once I was able to do this, I made a load of mistakes in my journey and I didn't have a video to really break down on why the shoulders are that important. Even though it's probably one of the worst muscle groups to train. Maybe that's just me. I hate training shoulders, but it's by far the most important part of our entire physique. And once this is down to a T, once you guys get it after this video, it's going to completely change everything about how you go about maximizing results. So guys, let's get right into it. So honestly, I just want to get a good basis of what our shoulders actually comprise of, because I feel like a lot of people just know it's a shoulder, everything. But once we really break it down into components, it's really going to change your vision on how to go about this. So obviously we have our front delt, we have our side delt, and our rear. And once we can maximize all 3 parts of these shoulders, or the parts of the shoulder, we're going to really, build that 3D dimensional look, get that V taper, and essentially get those bolder shoulders where it really sticks out and pops. And as you guys can see here, your shoulders are literally so important because once you do that, your arms look bigger, your back looks bigger, your chest looks bigger, your physique, you get the V taper, everything stems from this. And if not done right, it's just not going to be, honestly, it's just not, you're not going to be hitting your fullest potential of what you can actually look like and really what you can honestly achieve. Because this is a mistake that took me too long to figure out and I don't want you boys to miss out. So guys, let's get right into it. So first, we're going to go into, honestly, the basic structure of the shoulder. I kind of just briefed on it, but I really want you guys to have a better understanding is what are you actually training for the shoulder? I want you guys to walk away with being able to visualize basically the mental map of your shoulder so you know exactly what 3D really means. You're hitting all parts, you're maximizing results, and you're getting everything you need to succeed. I want to then break down the prioritization of the other 2 parts of our shoulder. So we have our side delt and our rear delt. Once we understand these 2, it's going to really, transform the width of our shoulders, the frame of our body, and the V taper that everyone wants to get that aesthetic frame. And honestly, it's the #1 muscle for creating the wide shoulders and small waist look. That's the side delts, and then the rear honestly puts everything together. Because if you only focus on your front laterals, or your pressing movements, and honestly your bench press or your incline press, whatever it is, it's only going to give you a front heavy look. And if you don't focus on the back part of your shoulders or your body, essentially, it's just not going to look well put together. You're going to just look front heavy and look kind of stupid, because that's a mistake I made and I want you boys to go through it. And then you're going to have an own training example I did as a push-pull leg split. You know exactly what to do and what you can see the entire frame, how we make sure we maximize results. Every part of our shoulder is being hit. And as you guys can see, full packed video. I really break down everything in detail and I don't want anything to be missed out. So I kind of gave us a brief overview of, obviously we have our front, we have our rear delt, and then we have our side, and then some exercises. I really went down to the exercise. I'm gonna give you guys examples as we get a little farther down in this video. But again, the whole point of this video is to understand that once we give ourselves the ability to know that our shoulders frame our body, how we go about that process, how we make sure we maximize results to doing everything we need to literally cut our timeline in half and to get the physique we want a lot quicker. Because this was one of the cheat codes that really allowed me to, I think, really transform my physique to just having the V honestly like pop. As you can see, the front look, everything's well put together. You get a defined look, the back looks sick, everything. So it all comes down to your shoulders. And if you're not doing this the right way, especially the tips in this video, you're really missing out on your growth and honestly like results you really should have, to keep it simple. So let's break down basic structure. So guys, we have to understand the shoulder muscle. So as we know, the shoulder is composed of 3 core parts. We have which of our essential goal of creating a rounded cap, 3D, a 3D illusion essentially. And once we understand all 3 parts, it's gonna give us the ability to really make sure we maximize each head of the shoulder. So as I go into a little more detail, our shoulder is of course comprised of these 3 parts, and now I want to break down why each part is so important, how we get a better, essentially have a better understanding of it, and what exercise correlate with what. So our front delt, again, is used predominantly in these pressing movements, the bench press and overhead press. I don't know about you guys, I'm a big visual guy, so I put visuals here. Your bench press, your incline press, and your shoulder press. These are comprised mostly of, your compound lifts, of course, but obviously the front part of your shoulder, as I mentioned in that diagram. And once we can comprise these compound lifts with the other isolation lifts, now we give ourselves the ability to, of course, build bolder shoulders to get that 3-dimensional look and make sure it pops. And again, our compound lifts mostly hit your front delt, so your presses and your overload, extremely important. And one of the most common mistakes I essentially went through in my journey was only prioritizing the front parts of my shoulder, especially in the compound lift. So if we look at, as I mentioned, I just want to give you guys a visual because I think it's always important. The front part of our shoulder right here. These compound lifts, mostly, of course, compound lifts hit multiple muscle groups, but they predominantly focus on the front part of our shoulder. And when we overtrain these front delts, it's going to give us a front heavy look, and the back of our shoulders or, our physique is going to be neglected. So we're not going to really get that V taper coming in and just get, honestly, everything to pop the way it should. It's important to make sure we need a rounded look, so making sure we get all 3 heads to get the aesthetic physique, which I want you guys to, of course, achieve. But please don't do this common mistake because this took up a little while on my journey. I want you guys to honestly go over that hump. So now that we talked about the front part of our shoulder, or front laterals, we need to talk about the other 2 and why they're so important. The heck? So weird, right? And then essentially why, how we're going to go about going this in regards to exercise, and how we're going to go about, of course, construction this shoulder in a training plan. So our side delts, of course, provide shoulder width, so it's going to make sure our frame honestly pops to get the V taper to come out more. And then the rear delts essentially create depth and roundness from side and the back. So again, reminder, we need to go beyond our compound lifts and train all 3 essential delts precisely to make sure we get everything we need to be, building these bolder shoulders. So this really was just comprised of, this common mistake of not basically only doing your compound lifts in the front part and not neglecting the other 2/3 of it, and essentially having a better understanding that our shoulders are composed of 3 essential parts. Now I really want to talk about the other 2/3 that really go neglected, which are the lateral and rear delts. So the laterals, as we know, is the side of our shoulder. And the biggest thing I want you guys to understand when doing this, because this was really something that took me a little while to understand, but to really start implementing the right way, and then the results started popping, was slow eccentrics. So basically what this means is you want to focus on the time under tension, the mind muscle connection when you're doing it. Of course, the eccentric is the way down, the stagnant's the hold, the squeeze, the concentrics the way up. And once we can maximize all 3 parts, we're gonna give ourselves the ability to really pack on muscle, but to make sure we're getting the mind muscle connection, breaking apart the muscle, and then it growing back faster. But the biggest thing with this is, it kind of flows into this, is different variations of different exercises. And this is probably one of the things that took me a really long time to get, was overcoming progress plateaus. Because when you do shoulders, based off my experience, I went through a lot of progress plateaus. And until I was able to understand that you can do different variations of the same exercise, then you could honestly overcome the muscle memory of these exercises. You can build muscle quicker. You can get over these stagnant periods. And basically what I did here was I was giving you guys an example that when you're doing the side delt, you could hit it in 3 different ways. There's so many more. It's just an example of doing lateral raises. You could do cable, and then you could do machine. You're still hitting that part, but a different variation to honestly go about it a different way. Same thing with your compounds. You don't have to stick to barbell here. You could do dumbbell, you could do a machine. Same thing here, dumbbell and machine. For here, you could do a barbell and machine. Different variations still in the same muscle part, and that's going to allow us to overcome stagnant growth. We're going to be able to not get these stagnant periods of where we're not seeing any growth. It gets frustrating, we want to quit. That's going to be essentially bypassed because we're understanding there's different ways to go about it. And especially prevalent in building your shoulders. So very versatile principle I want you guys to walk away with. I actually created a video that literally breaks this down in a lot more detail. Instead of me talking about this for 30 minutes, I'll just link that in the description. It kind of goes down everything about getting progress plateaus, stagnant growth, how you go about it, and just a more in-depth focus on what I just touched there. You combine that video with this, especially building your shoulders, it's going to completely change the game for you guys. So I'll link that there. I hope that is a good resource for you boys. And the biggest thing with either one of these, I want you guys to be training at least 2 to 3 times per week in moderate to high reps. I'm going to break down the reps and what range is best, as you can see right here. But it's really important to make sure that our compounds, of course, are comprised of, the front part of our delts. But what we need to make sure is also, you could also, hit a narrow focus. You could do front laterals. Like, you could still hit that part of the front delt. Like you guys see here, we could do it with dumbbells. We could do it with, central cables. We could do a machine to hit the front part. This is just a different way to go about it, but usually our pressing movements hit this part of the shoulder. So we won't want to overload and get that too much of a front heavy look. But again, just make sure you get the training frequency under control of how many times you're hitting it per week. So now let's talk about the rear delts, which this is the most neglected part of the shoulder, as you guys see right here. And the reason it's just so important is because it adds depth to the side profile and it balances out that front heavy look. So once we have the front look and then the back look, and of course we have the side, and now we're putting the entire physique together, the V taper, everything's going to honestly look very aesthetic. It's going to look sick. And now I want to touch on actually the exercises we could be using for the rear delts. I apologize, I don't have visuals, but face pulls are basically the ones you go like this. Just do a quick Google search. Like I said, next time I'll put all the visuals. I honestly forgot this piece. Rear delt flies, usually with dumbbells, you could do these bent over, and then reverse pec deck is basically like the ones you do with the pec flies, just in the other way. And these could be put on your upper body days. I'm going to break this down in the training split below. We're going to be training these parts of the shoulder with kind of light to moderate weight, focusing on the mind muscle connection. So important to make sure we're doing it this way, because once we understand the mind muscle connection, that makes sure we're hitting the movement the right way and everything's going to maximize its potential. And then the biggest thing with this is we need to make sure we're doing a minimum of 2 times per week, 3 to 4 sets, and the rep ranges vary based on your goal. So now let's touch into the rep ranges. So 4 to 8 reps usually predominantly go around strength, heavier weight, less focus on size or shape. 8 to 12 reps focus on size and mass, hypertrophy, good for building muscle and bulk. This is the biggest thing is when you're doing 8 to 12 reps, you need to make sure you're really prioritizing the mind muscle connection, not just the weight, because when you do too heavy of a weight, you're going to basically recruit other muscles to do the exercise, and you're really not targeting that muscle group, which is then kind of like it's just not really the right way to go about stuff. So always drop the ego, always drop the weight, make sure you're getting the full mind muscle connection. You're not just doing it based off the weight, because that is something that honestly just delays your timeline to results. And then 12 to 20 reps, definition, shape, and muscle isolation. Especially for these 2 parts of the shoulder, it's the best for the side and rear delts because it helps build that aesthetic look. You're very toned and you have good form and the muscle control. Everything kind of goes about the right way. I like to generally stick in these. It depends what part of your journey you're in. If you're trying to pack on size, of course, stick to something like this. But generally speaking, I like to stick in something like this range over here. But just focus on the mind muscle connection, and then the reps and everything will come as a byproduct. Because when you focus on the mind muscle connection, your weight's not too high, you're going to know your optimal range. Generally speaking, this is a good way to go about it. So I do recommend something around here, depending on where you are and other variables in place. So now that we talked about these 2, so now we have a better understanding of our shoulder, what it's comprised of, 3 parts. We really broke down the 2 parts that are kind of like, I guess, like just honestly not hit enough, which is our rear and side delts. And now I want to give you a sample training plan that kind of like really goes into everything, because as you guys can see right here, once you get the shoulders down, it frames the entire body. Guys, you want huge shoulders. It's the best way to go about it. It puts the whole physique together, and it literally just, honestly, there's no better way, because once you get the shoulders, the V taper, the chest, the back, the arms, everything looks bigger. Yeah, like as you can see, it's just the best way to go. So I gave us a sample push-pull leg split, and I'll kind of want to just break it down. So as we know, our barbell overhead press, it's a compound lift. It hits the front part of our shoulder, our laterals, you know, the front part, which is really important. Dumbbell laterals, so the side laterals are going to hit this part. So apologies when I meant barbell overhead press. It hits the front part of the shoulder. As I mentioned above, the laterals hit the side. Incline, another pressing movement. Again, this is a push-pull leg split, so we're going to be hitting multiple muscle groups. So we have another press. Face pulls is our rear delts, so it's going to hit the back, and then the other two, which is you know, our tricep movements. Now we're going to go into the back. Again, we have pull-ups, which is a compound lift that hits, you know, our shoulder in different parts, or a lat pull down. Above our rows, our compound lift. Rear delt flies, dumbbell machine. Remember, 2 different variations to go about it, whatever's best for you and the mind muscle connection. Cable laterals, again, side part, one arm. I put the visual up there. And then again, just bicep movements. The leg day, I should make a video on legs. It's the best one. But another day, so that's that. And then we have our push day. I try to give different examples. Again, guys, you can use this as a sample, but generally speaking, you want to stick to the same ones. You can see the growth over time. And then if you get stuck, then you start doing different variations of the movement. I try to just kind of give you just a different way to look about it. Machine shoulder press, seated dumbbell press. Again, front laterals right here. It's in the front part of our shoulders. Drop set laterals, side. Drop set lateral, side lateral raises. It could be a little more specific. And then incline Smith machine press. Again, it's a press movement. Reverse pec deck, rear delts, scroll crushers, and then our triceps. And then again, same thing here. Chest supported T-bow rows, wide grip pull down, neutral pull-ups. Again, compound lift. It's going to hit parts of our shoulder, mostly our back as well. Reverse cable rear delt fly. So again, different variation of doing the rear delts. Face pulls, again, light activation and finishing. Guys, be creative. There's so many ways to go about it. The biggest recommendation I have when go about this is to make sure you're just counting your frequency, about making sure you're hitting, you know, the side and then, you know, the side and then the rear delt 2 to 3 times per week. You have your compound lift, so you're hitting, you know, the front part. And then if you want to get even a better focus, you could also do, you know, some isolation movements that even targets this as well. Just to make sure you're not getting that front heavy look and you're not neglecting other parts of your shoulder. So guys, that was everything. I don't want to make this video too long, but I hope this kind of broke it down to understanding exactly what you need to build 3D dimensional shoulders, the aesthetic physique. This is probably the most important part of your body. And if you neglect this, everything's just not going to come in the right way. I truly believe that, because your shoulders honestly frame the entire body. And once you get this down to a T, everything in regards to results literally just starts popping. It's honestly the best way to do it. So biggest thing I want you guys to walk away with, there's 3 parts of your shoulder. Make sure you don't neglect the other 2 parts, which are usually the side and the rear delt. These shoulders, again, are literally everything we need to get the aesthetic frame. The V taper, a wider chest, a wider back, bigger arms, everything. So as you can see, it literally just does everything. So guys, I hope this video was helpful. I'm getting a bunch of questions on it. I hope I cleared up on why 3D shoulders are so important to build the aesthetic physique. And now you have a better focus and lens, and, you know, understand that the shoulder is not just comprised of a shoulder press. We're going to look at the shoulder press, understand the press movement, and now we have the other 2/3 we need to hit. We're going to put that in our training plan, and now we're going to understand our training frequency to understand how many times you have to hit it per week to then, you know, get the physique we want. So boys, I hope this video was helpful. If there's anything you wish there was a little more in detail, leave a comment down below. Let me know some of the stuff that you really want to have a better context of, that I can make a video about. And again, if there's anything that I can do to help, man, always let me know. I just want you boys to win. And I was super pumped about this video, because this is probably, I hate training it, but it's the most important. It's like a love-hate relationship, but you honestly can't beat it. So love you boys. Again, I hope I gave you everything you need. Let's make sure we crush it. It's summertime. Let's always be our best. And I'll see you guys in the next video on the channel. Cheers.